Everyone, welcome to Cerwin-Vegas. Today we're going to be doing some diagnostic work on a set of Cerwin-Vega 316Rs. I've got everything here behind me. In this video, testing the drivers, throw everything in the cabinet, get some measurements, and see where we're at. Let's get to it. Well, to start off, we'll kind of just go through what we all got here. We got two 15-inch woofers to test, one for each speaker. We got the crossovers here, and over here we got 4 tweeters, 2 mid-ranges. So each speaker's got 1 mid-range, 1 woofer, 2 tweeters, 1 on the front baffle and 1 on the rear. First things first, I want to get an impedance measurement of every single one of these drivers individually. I'm going to be doing both woofers, both mids, and all 4 tweeters. After I do the impedance measurements of all the drivers, I'm going to set these tweeters up, every one individually. I haven't really decided how I'm going to do that frequency response measurement yet. I might still do a meter distance, just try to get them set up here. And I'm just looking for any differences between that 1 CS5 that I seen and then the 3 HS5 tweeters that were in these. I haven't had one of these HS5s in the shop to measure yet, so I'm very curious. I do have a lot of measurements of just the CS5s and the C5G and the C5. And there's not a whole lot of a difference, but I'm curious to see if there's going to be anything here. Okay, I had to do that a couple times. I actually had to drop the voltage setting on my Clio system here for it to actually do both chirps. Doesn't look good. So I got this measurement here. I'm gonna mark this one in red. And I'm gonna go grab the other one and I'm gonna test that one. And then we'll be able to look at the 2 woofers side by side. Okay, so I got this one set up here, ready to go. This is the 15.3 cone that is on it. That's what's marked on the back, 15.3W. That is the different looking, older style cone. Yes, it is 15.3W. It is still a 15.4W stamped on the back of the magnet. That is just the cone that they used in these. So let's run this one. Let's see if this will take the full voltage. Okay, so what was happening with both of these woofers is I was getting an overload running the chirp, doing the impedance measurement. That should not happen with a driver this size, and the max setting is about 3.5, 3.4 and change volts. Sending that through, it should not come in as overload. A driver this size should be able to take that. I'm thinking maybe because there is some spider sag on there and the way it's kind of sitting. But there's some issues with both of these woofers actually, because I had to drop the voltage down to just over 2 to do that chirp. And I've used that full measurement to do small mid-ranges, even some tweeters will take that full 3.5. Usually if I don't, it sometimes comes up and it tells me voltage low and I have to run it higher. So to get it so it wasn't saying overload or low voltage, I had to be at about 2.18. which is unusual. That's the first sign. And then, yeah, just the graphs here alone, which I'll go through right away. Could be some problems. Gonna mark this guy as blue. Here's the impedance curve of the 2 woofers. There's actually a problem with both of these, but the blue one is definitely worse than the red. So the blue one is the one with the 15.3W cone. And its free air resonant frequency is at about 19.6 hertz. So it's awfully low. Usually they're not that low, these woofers. The one with the EE2030 cone, the newer cone, it is a little higher frequency, closer to kind of what I was expecting, but still higher than I was expecting. Usually These things come in around 26, 28 hertz, something like that. You can see the free air resonant peak, it isn't as high as the other one, but if you look to the right and it comes down and there's a little peak again, and then it comes down, that's suspect as well. Even though if you look here, the DC resistance, so this is if you were to check it with a multimeter, just checking the resistance of the coil as it sits. The 2030 cone, it would check out to be okay, 3.4. If you were to check this with a multimeter, I would say this is probably a pretty good woofer. There's no issues. Although the 153W in the blue, at 4.4 ohms, I would be looking for some potential issues, and I'm going to say with pretty good certainty that it's the spider that is worn out on that woofer that is causing this. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the mid-ranges and get the same measurement from those guys. Here we have the MF61 impedance curves. First thing you notice, they're not the same, which isn't the end of the world. It would be nicer if they were a little closer, but both of these impedance curves show two perfectly working mid-range drivers, so I'm okay with this. This isn't uncommon with older speakers, especially that have seen use over the years, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Looking at it here, you can see the free air resonant frequency is 194.6 hertz, and the blue one, it comes in at 246.9. We'll call it 247. Little difference in the impedance. The red is a bit higher than the blue one. Again, not a huge difference, only by about 2 ohms or so, 2.5 maybe. After the peaks here, it dips down, and then where the impedance starts rising again. You can see every little bump here, almost every single one on both drivers is pretty similar. So that is just showing characteristics of those drivers. That's nothing too crazy going on here. And then you got your DC resistance. The red was 6.6 ohms and the blue at 6.9. Okay, now it's time to move on to the tweeters. If you noticed here, I've got each one marked on the back with just a different color electrical tape. If you see the measurements that I showed, there was always a red and a blue line, and it's just, I want to make sure I know and remember which one is which. I did that with the mids. One was marked with the red on the back and one with the blue. Same thing for the woofer. So for the tweeters, I'm doing the red, blue, green, and yellow, and those lines on there. When I do my measurements, that's the color I make that graph, just so I can keep everything separated from one another, just in case one has an issue, and then I don't forget which one that needs to be fixed, potentially. So for these are all HS5, except for the CS5, and that one I've got marked with the red. So I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna save that one for the last. I'm gonna do all these measurements here really quick here, and then we'll look at the graph with all of them beside each other and see what kind of differences there are. Okay, well, that didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to. If you look here where I've got the DC resistances marked, the one I had marked with the yellow tape and the blue tape, those ones are bad. Those are going to need new diaphragms. Both those HS5 tweeters are no longer working. But luckily I had one HS5 that worked and the CS5 worked. So the DC resistance was 6.5 ohms for the HS5, and the CS5, it was 6.6 ohms. So that's good. Because of those two HS5s being bad, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a impedance curve for them, but I did for the other two, so we'll take a look at those. Now again, we've got some differences. Bigger differences than I thought there was going to be. The CS5 resonant frequency of this tweeter here, the peak was at 1584 hertz, and it was up at almost 20 ohms. The HS5 was 1852, give or take, hertz, and that was at 13.3 ohms. So again, a little bit more of a difference than I thought there was going to be. But if you look closely at the right side, like after the peaks here, you can see they both kind of have a little bump there, and then they both kind of do the little curve after that. And then, yeah, like again, they're showing the same characteristics for the most part. So these two are working all right. A 6.5 and a 6.6 ohm DC resistance reading. If you're using a multimeter to measure these, that's a pass. That's generally what these tweeters measure at. Okay, looking at the frequency responses between the CS5 and the HS5, they're very similar. The biggest difference really is kind of 15 kilohertz and up, where the HS5 did drop off a little quicker, where the CS5 kind of stayed in there a little bit longer. Again, that is a characteristic of basically all of the C5Gs, CS5, HS5. A lot of these do kind of fall off before 20 kilohertz. So nothing bad here. That's good. If you've got a CS5 or an HS5 and your 316Rs, they're pretty much the same tweeter anyways. The response is the same. Now, looking at the spectral decay for the CS5 and HS5, not a lot of differences here. They are they're each kind of doing the same thing at the same frequency response. Like the little bit of difference in the actual frequency response, we've seen that in the measurement there. The CS5 does play out a little further, and it doesn't drop off as fast as the HS5. But I've also seen I've seen CS5s do the same thing as this HS5. So these differences really kind of just depend from tweeter to tweeter. Not really much of a difference, regardless of the label on the back. So an HS5 and a CS5, their responses are very similar. And when it gets down here to about 2 kilohertz, this is probably past what is usable for this tweeter, and we'll have to see what it looks like and see what the crossover is allowing that tweeter to play at, and that might not even be a part of it. It might be dropped off before that. So everything is probably looking pretty good here. Nothing wrong with these tweeters. Okay, I'm actually going to be ending this video right here. There's still a lot of stuff to go through, and as I started editing this video, it was just going to be way too long. So this one's going to stop here. I still got frequency responses and spectral decays and all that good stuff to go. That's going to be in a part 2 that I'm going to, I'll upload that video probably shortly after this one. But yeah, that's going to do it for now. So remember, Cerwin-Vega, big or small, save them all.